Welcome everyone to our webinar on the new Gatling product, Gatling Studio. We'll give other people 1 or 2 more minutes to join, and then we'll kick it off. So just bear with me for another minute or so. Okay, let's get started. And if you join late, there'll be a recording and you can catch the rest of it on the beginning part, at least on replay. Today, we're going to talk about Gatling Studio, a brand new product from the Gatling team designed to ease the process of creating load tests. I'm going to make a short presentation describing what's new and what Gatling Studio does and who it's for. And then we'll do a live demo. At the end, there'll be time for a Q&A. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat or the questions box, and we'll get through as many of them as we can. Let's get started. Okay, so let's start off by thinking about the problem. Why load testing slows down teams. There's several reasons, and we can kind of group them into categories, including heavy scripting. So this is basically like just the time consumption of constructing scripts. Fragmented tooling, where teams waste energy switching between different recorders for creating browsers or recording browser sessions, then editing them, and then how they're going to run the scripts. Unrealistic flows, where you've basically created a script, but it doesn't really represent what your users are actually doing. And then finally, fragile tests, where you make a recording, but it breaks easily, and there's a lot of maintenance involved to make the script run on a regular basis, especially in the case of where you're trying to automate your tests. That's not very helpful. Okay, so what we're here to talk about today is Gatling Studio. This is the easiest way to create powerful load tests. What we can do is record browser-based interactions directly in Gatling Studio, automatically generate a HAR file from those sessions, and then instantly convert that into an executable Gatling load test. It only requires you to have a Gatling Enterprise account, it can be a trial account, to be able to log into Gatling Studio. All right, so let's go over what those steps in a little bit more detail. Record. So this is basically the step of capturing traffic in your browser. What Gatling Studio does is generate a HAR file while you're recording. It automates this process. So you hit start, it captures the traffic, you close the browser, and it ends the recording. Step 2 is to refine. Now, this is the step that is oftentimes kind of tedious, and Gatling Studio is designed to simplify it. So after you've created the recording and you want to isolate the part that's actually interesting for load testing, we give you the ability to instantly remove all of the static resources from the test and to also isolate the domain that you're interested in. We'll do this on a simplified demo app that we maintain today, but you can imagine if you were working on a more complicated site, that there could be dozens of different domains that show up in the load test script. Sorry, in the recorded script that you don't want in your load test. Step 3, run at scale. So this is really where we're connecting Gatling Studio to the core Gatling product. The ability to craft the test and at the end in Gatling Studio and at the end export it and run it using Gatling's Enterprise Edition. This is ultimately the ability to seamlessly go from test creation to test execution without a lot of barriers in between. Finally, the way that we want to think about this is the full connection of how the different features and products from Gatling can facilitate test creation. So this is one of many options. It sits in with our other recent releases, including the ability to use Postman collections to create load tests and our no-code test builder. That obviously sits on top of all of the existing Gatling test as code options, and these things are designed to function with one another. Finally, you just need one account for access. It's not different accounts for different things. So if you set up a Gatling Enterprise Edition account, it will facilitate the access to both Studio, Gatling Enterprise Edition, and all of the features that you need to set up a successful load testing program. Okay, and then last thing I wanted to show in the presentation is to show you kind of what our general vision is. So today, what we've released focuses on going from recording to usable tests in minutes. And then in the near to long-term future, we're going to continue to iterate and improve the editing experience in Gatling Enterprise to make it easier to get to smarter flows and just all around have an ease of going from your script to a fully functioning and like easy to understand load test. And then finally, the ultimate vision is really to think about Gatling and Gatling Studio as a co-pilot for developers and testers to reduce friction and to make the execution of the test the easy part, and then let you spend more time focusing on delivering value to your customers. All right, so that is the presentation, and now let's move over and look at a demo of Gatling Studio. Let's see, actually what we should do here is let's go to the Gatling homepage so you can see how to access Gatling Studio. From the homepage, if you go to product and then down here under latest releases, we have Gatling Studio. You can go there and then there's a helpful download Gatling Studio link, which takes you down to the download section. It's available as a standalone application for Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. There's feature parity for all 3 versions, so you really use whichever one is your daily system and that you're most comfortable with. I won't download this now because I already have it on my system, but I can assure you that download and installation is the same as it is for pretty much every desktop application. So I'm going to switch over to Gatling Studio now and show you the welcome screen. So this is an instance where I don't have any recordings in here. And let's just go over the left-hand menu real quick, and then we'll create a recording and then a load test script from the recording. So at the top of the left-hand menu, we have a workspace selection. This is designed to let you organize your work. So you can create different workspaces. It could be for different projects, or it could be for different teams. It's really up to you how you do this. You could work from one big workspace or many workspaces. So you can open or create a workspace here, and you can see that I have 2 or 3 that I use for different purposes. Next, below that are the recordings. Here, you basically have 2 options. One is to record a new journey. This is to let you use Gatling Studio to capture those user actions in a browser. There's also a separate second option, which is to import an existing HAR file. So maybe you have a recorded HAR file from an existing project, and you're thinking that maybe I could do something more interesting with this with Gatling and Gatling Studio, and you could import it here for that purpose. The third option on here are the scenarios. So this is how you're going to create your load testing scenario from the recording. And when we've created them, we'll have them stored here on the left-hand side as well. And finally, I'll show you the settings. Right now in the settings section, what you can do is let Gatling Studio automatically detect your browser, which is what mine is set up to do. And then you can also select manual configuration if you want to tell it which browser to use. This, as of today, Gatling Studio supports Chromium-based browsers. So for most people, that'll be Google Chrome. And that's what I would suggest if that's something that you're comfortable working with. Let's go and create a recording and a load test. So again, I mentioned this, I think, earlier, but please feel free to add any questions in the chat or in the questions tab, and we'll get to those in a few minutes if you have questions. All right, so from the recordings page, to create a new recording, you can click on the record a new journey button, and it comes preloaded with Gatling's demo site, it's ecom.gatling.io. And so if we click start recording, what will happen is it will open up, it will open up a new Chrome window, and you can see here Gatling's demo page. So it's sort of like an e-commerce page. There's some products down here. You can log in, there's a shopping cart, there's a search feature. So let's try to behave like maybe a real buyer would. So maybe you are interested in this black earthen bottle, and you come here and you decide, yes, I want to buy this $25 black earthen bottle. So we've added that to the cart. I want to go back, and I see that there's a couple t-shirts on here, but there's also multiple pages. So maybe I want to search for t-shirt and see if there's any other colors. So I've searched for t-shirt. I can scroll down and see that there's a bunch of color options. Today, I really would like to buy this $99 red t-shirt, so I'll add that to the cart as well. Okay, I've spent enough money and I want to check out. So I'll go to the login. It's preloaded with login credentials. Again, to sort of make this an easy way to demo and test your scripts. And then I will go to the shopping cart and click checkout. Okay, so now I've checked out, and that's my user journey. So I can close the Chrome window, and now we're back into Gatling Studio. And here we have, we can see that we've successfully recorded the journey, and we can give it a name. So let's call it Gatling buyer journey, and click save. All right, so now you can see we're still in the recording section here, and we have this recorded buyer journey. What does it have? It has all of the individual requests that were made from my local browser to the server recorded in here. And you can see, obviously there's a lot of GET requests here of different types like HTML, CSS, image files, PNG file. I can get more information about any one of the requests by clicking on it. And you can see I can get the request details here and the response details down here. So this gives you all of the sort of granular information about exactly what happened while you were browsing on the site. Let's close that. And if we scroll down, we can see there's a lot of requests here. A lot of them are for images, obviously. Here's a post request when we added something to the cart. This is honestly, like it's a lot of information for the fact that we were only on the page for a minute or two. So let's move to the scenario creation step and see how Gatling Studio takes this long list of information and transforms it into something that's practical for load testing. So click the scenario button, and now we have the filter recording modal that pops up. So we have our name here still. And if we go kind of down from top to bottom, the first option we have is to filter domains. So this I mentioned earlier in the presentation. On more complex sites, you can use this to remove domains for third-party items, maybe like Google Tag Manager or some other like JavaScript tracking managers that you don't need to include in your load test. So that's a quick and dirty way to remove unnecessary resources. We also have this static resources filter. So you can see here, if I toggle this, we'll go back to basically the same list that we had on the prior window. And we default it to off, which is kind of the standard for most load tests to not include static resources. So that removes 27 lines, and we're down to, I don't know the exact number, but I'm guessing about 10 or so total requests, 10 or 11, I guess. So now we have just clean timeline of events and exactly what the types are and the endpoints that are related to the event. So I feel pretty good about this. Let's hit the filter recording button and see what happens. Awesome. Now we have the Gatling, Gatling buyer journey, and we're down to 19 requests. Those include the initial GET request, obviously, to the site, and then all of the actions that we made on the page, including the post request. It also includes pauses between each step that happened, like this one, for example, while I was talking, and some others while we were maybe browsing and deciding what to put in the cart. So this gives us the full load testing journey, the user journey. And for something like this post request for the login, it includes the resource as well. And that's it. That's our user journey created from the recording on a website. But this isn't the end, because this isn't a runnable load test for anyone right now. So from here, what we allow you to do is to export the project. What will this do? Let's give it a shot and see. Okay, so this export will create a Java Maven Gatling project ready to be executed locally, or you can push it to Gatling's Enterprise Edition. You have to pick a base URL. In this case, we'll select the API URL because that's the most interesting one for our purposes, and click the export button. Okay, so I'm going to put this on my desktop. And it generates this Java Maven zip file. You can see I have some other ones there from earlier demos. And we can just click in here and see the contents quickly. We have a README configuration file, pom.xml, and then the file for the Maven wrapper, and then an SRC folder. Let's see. Let's open this in IntelliJ so that you can get a little bit better idea of what you end up getting. So it was this guy. Let's open that. Okay, so when you export your test, it comes with a very detailed README file that gives you all of the steps that are necessary to go from here to running the test on Gatling Enterprise. It's really pretty straightforward. You basically just need to set an API token and push the test to Gatling Enterprise, and then you will be off and running. Additionally, if we go to the Java folder, we can open this. And now this is our simulation. So I won't go into the details of every single step here for the sake of time, but we have the package at the top. There's some import statements that bring in the Gatling libraries that we need to run the test. And then if we scroll down here a little ways, we can look at and see the scenario that we built. So here's the protocol builder here that sets the base URL. And now we can start seeing the individual steps of our test, including the pauses. So this is that big long pause where I was talking when we were first on the page. And now in this environment, you could just leave this and push it to Gatling Enterprise and run it, or you could take some time in here to maybe add more descriptive names for the steps. Instead of calling it page 5, you might want to say that it's the session step as just an example. If we scroll down all the way to the bottom, we can see this last little piece here, which is the setup block. So this is how virtual users will be injected into your test. So in here, we pre-bake it with this at-once users. So it's basically just designed to add a single user and allow you to effectively just test that the test works. But then as you were trying to prepare this and use it for a realistic test, you can modify this to have a load injection profile that's more realistic to the way users arrive at your application. I'll just click back over to Gatling Studio for a minute, go back to the home page, and I will stop there. That is Gatling Studio, and that is how you can go from a browser interaction to a fully functional load test in just a few minutes. And at that point, I will stop and ask if you have any questions. While you are thinking about if you have any questions, I will just offer up a couple of other pieces of information. The team is actively seeking feedback. So if you test out Gatling Studio and you notice something that you think could be improved, or it doesn't do something that you would like it to do, there's links from the product to GitHub repo where you can open an issue or leave other comments. The product team will also be really interested in interviewing users, so you can reach out to us through the website, and we're excited to talk to anybody that tries it out to get a sense of how they use it, what is awesome about it, and where we can make improvements. Okay, I don't see any questions. Oh wait, let me click over. I think there might be a question over here. Yes. Okay, so question is, in Gatling Studio, what's the recommended way to correlate dynamic values between requests, extracting IDs, or hidden fields from one response and passing them to subsequent URLs? So this is a great question, and I can tell you that the scope of this initial release does not cover that. But I know that our product team is interested in developing this and having this be something that's in an upcoming release of Gatling Studio to allow this to be automated in Studio. So I think the best answer I have for this is stay tuned, and that it will be something that is added to the product in the future. Okay. Leave it open for another minute or two if anybody has any follow-up questions or other issues. Is there anybody on the call who's already tried Gatling Studio? Nobody. So since nobody has tried it yet, I encourage you all to go to the website, download it, and give it a shot and see for yourself how easy it is to create a test. Let's see, might be one more question over here. Okay, so does Gatling Studio provide configuration for distributed load across different geographical locations? So in Studio itself, it does not, because it's really just focused on the aspect of capturing uh, user behaviors in the browser and then transforming that into a test. But that's where Gatling's Enterprise Edition excels. So if you take that test and push it to Gatling Enterprise, there we can distribute the load across different geographic regions. I think if you use our managed locations, I think we're supporting either 11 or 12 different locations right now. And if you bring your own private locations, it's limitless. Next question. How is Gatling Studio different from the previous recorder feature-wise? I think the most important difference here is actually that the old recorder was really primarily based on a proxy mode, so sort of man-in-the-middle way of capturing traffic. And what we found is that for many people, like configuring this in their browser was frankly like cumbersome, and it broke when browsers had updates. And this really was a kind of unsupportable method for reliably generating scripts. So the Gatling Studio obviously relies more like heavily on the har file generation instead. So this is the main difference. You could work with har files in the old recorder, but it wasn't really the primary use. The other difference, I guess the important difference, is that this is designed to be a little more user friendly in terms of interactions than the old recorder was. So I will say, like on the downside, obviously, like we had a couple of things that you could do in the old recorder, like set the Java version that's not available right now in Gatling Studio. But generally speaking, that's I think that covers the main differences. Okay, any more questions? Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending. And again, give Gatling Studio a shot and let our team know what you think about it and what we can do to make it better. Thanks again for attending.